Firearms Registry, has it made a difference? We're going to keep going with your calls here, 974-8255. We're back after this.
The stories behind the world headlines. What do they mean to you? Keep your finger on the pulse with The World Tonight with Rob Breckenridge on Calgary's foremost talk radio station, AM770 CHQR.
All right, some time for your calls here. 403-974-8255. That's 974-TALK. 1-800-563-7770. Don't forget our website, am770chqr.com. One point about stats. I'm not sure where Wendy was getting her numbers. Numbers I have, this is from 98, when the registry was actually implemented. It was 95 the legislation was brought in. 98 was implemented to 2005. Violent crime was down 4%. Murders were up 9%. The homicide rate was up 9% from 98 to 2005. Gang-related killings more than doubled in that span. That's not to say it's because of the registry. However, the notion that it's made us safer, to me, seems misplaced. I guess some police chiefs and even some police officers say they need it. Others, certainly the Police Association, which is the frontline officers, has long been divided on this. And I think, as one of the callers said, when it comes down to where those resources would have been better spent, I think you'd see, different response from police officers. But again, and I got respect for police officers, but they don't set policy in this country. Take tasers. And I'm not necessarily saying tasers should be banned, but we can have a discussion. Now, the police say it shouldn't. But again, it's not up to them. Police mean well, for the most part. But in doing so, I'm sure they'd love all kinds of powers. Let us make it easier to arrest people and easier to listen in on people. Right? So it's not, we don't let them decide policy. So let's, keep that in mind. And it's interesting to see sometimes, certainly on the left, this suspicion or outright hostility to police. But as soon as it comes to the gun registry, well, hey, the police say this, the police say this, the police say this. So it's rather selective. Anyway, I want to get your thoughts on what you heard from Wendy and what you'd like to see the federal government do. Let's go to the phones here. We're going to start with Alex. Alex, go ahead.
Hi, I'm calling from Ontario, and I was just calling to say the whole notion of putting in a security system at every single public place is ridiculous. I go to a high school out here, and 3 weeks ago, a girl was stabbed in the face, and 2 people were run over by a car in the same incident. How could installing anything like that have saved them? It's the only reason school shootings really seem to happen in any frequency is because of media sensationalism. They really do not happen that often. The media hypes them up so much it gets everyone going.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
So,
yeah, I'm with you 100%, Alex. And it becomes panic. You take what happened on the Greyhound bus where Tim McLean was murdered, and that was horrific. And then all of a sudden, metal detectors at every bus stop and people being searched. Look, maniacs are going to freak out and stab or shoot someone.
Exactly.
It could be in a movie theater. It could be in a mall. It could be on the street. Yeah. And otherwise they become a police state. We'll just have random searches everywhere, metal detectors every couple of blocks. Every building you go into, it gets insane. I agree with you, Alex.
It's a 1 in a million random event. The whole point of a random event is random. You cannot predict it. You can't really prevent something like that happening. And banning guns or registering guns is never going to keep someone safe. If you get rid of all guns, someone's going to go on a knifing spree. It's happened before. Nothing. Banning guns or registering guns is never going to prevent mass shooting or mass killings, really.
No, absolutely. Good point, Alex. Appreciate the phone call. Let's get John in here. John, go ahead.
Hey, I'm from Ontario. I own firearms.
Okay.
I don't beat my wife, contrary to what Miss, what's her name, Cukier keeps bringing up.
Well, there's a lot of suspicion of gun owners in her comments, and I think what these groups represent. I think that came through.
Well, yeah. Next time you have her on, just ask her where she got a lot of her funding from. If you look, she used to get a lot of her funding from the Liberal Party of Canada, and to me that's politically motivated. And just like you said with the chiefs of police, you do not want the chiefs of police setting precedents or setting policy, just like you don't want the military setting policy. If that happens, you have Chile back in the 70s. It's a possibility.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. Yeah, and look, I think I'll give Wendy the benefit of the doubt. I think she really believes what she said, and I think she's wrong, but I don't think, if the money was coming from somewhere else, she'd be all for gun rights.
Well, no, but she's an expert in IT, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's her pedigree. So what makes her an expert? Myself, I've grown up around firearms all my life. the streets didn't run with blood before C-68 came through, and I hear all these horrible, evil things that, you know, us gun owners hide in the dark and file our fangs at night. You know, I'm really kind of sick of this whole stereotype, really.
Yeah. Well, no, I agree with you, John. I appreciate the phone call. You know, and that's the thing. I mean, you know, homicide's been on the decline. It was on the decline, you know, through the 80s, well, you know, into the 90s, certainly. And through a lot of the 90s, and there was a bit of a leveling off, a little bit of an uptick. I mean, obviously, still overall, Canada's homicide rate is fairly low. But at the same time, and you know, maybe it is just a natural trend. That's where homicide rates were going, maybe for different reasons. Maybe because a bunch of potential killers were aborted 30 years ago. Maybe because we put all the bad guys in jail, or who knows. It's not. Maybe it has nothing to do with gun laws one way or the other. I mean, we did a piece a while back looking at states, jurisdictions in the U.S. that have brought in concealed carry laws and how their homicide rates have gone down. I mean, people look at the U.S., one big picture, and just assume guns are everywhere and murders are everywhere. But again, you go state to state, you'll find a lot of different laws. And different murder rates in all sorts of jurisdictions. And it's interesting to note, Michigan was one example where there was concealed carry laws brought in, and then Michigan's homicide rate went down. Maybe it was going that way anyway. But, you know, it's important to keep these factors in mind. Anyway, let's, who we got next here? Let's go to Rob. Rob, go ahead.
Hi. Alex stole my thunder a bit, but I was going to say that I was walking around the University of Calgary yesterday hanging posters, and there are literally hundreds and hundreds of doors and entrances into all these buildings. Like, it's absolutely absurd to think that you would be able to have metal detectors and guards at all these places. And like you said, then where does it end? You know, movie theaters and shopping malls. I guess if you have a specific place like a downtown Chicago high school where you know this is happening, then yeah, I know some of those downtown Chicago high schools have metal detectors, and it makes sense. But
well, and it's going to be up to the school. Yeah, if they think it makes sense for them. I mean, just like if you own a business and maybe if you run a nightclub, for example, maybe you want some additional security. So and for that, I was in Israel a couple of years ago, and it's actually pretty common. Cafes, restaurants, places like that, you have somebody standing outside, more often than not, armed with a firearm.
Yeah.
But, we haven't really had a problem with people walking in with bombs strapped to their chest and blowing up pizzerias here. So,
no.
But that's, and that adds a cost to everything. That doesn't come cheap either. So.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
Rob, I appreciate the phone call. Let's take a break here. We're going to come back. More time for your calls right after this.
Bringing world issues to Calgarians. You're listening to The World Tonight with Rob Breckenridge on Calgary's favorite news talk station, AM770 CHQR.
Now, there's an additional question here beyond the merits of the registry. I mean, how committed is the government to eliminating the registry? How likely is it that either of these pieces of legislation are going to get anywhere? I think, if the government had its druthers, I suspect there's enough sentiment in the Conservative Party that, I think they were sincere in their opposition to it from the outset. But at the same time, I think they've got their eyes set on, some, like Toronto area ridings, and maybe there's some reluctance about pushing too hard. They can put a bill out that they think is going to be defeated, like in the Senate, so they can go to one base and say, well, we tried, and maybe go to other potential voters and say, well, we didn't try that hard. So how committed do you think the government is to this, and what about the other parties? All right, let's go back to the phones here. Who we got next? This is Paul. Paul, go ahead.
Hi, how's it going?
Pretty good.
Good show.
Thanks.
Just a couple of things. Wendy was giving some stats out there, but in England, they've banned handguns in that, 10 years it's been, and their crime has gone up 60% in gun-related murders. Another thing is if you're an officer, I'm not here to bash officers, but if you rely on the gun registry to save your life, I think you're sadly mistaken. The fact is, anybody can have a gun at any time, and to rely on a tool like that puts you at risk, in my opinion.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, there are millions of guns out there. There are millions of unregistered guns out there. No one knows exactly how many. But if you say, oh, this guy's not in the registry, there's no guns here, yeah, that's dangerous thinking.
Yeah, I totally agree. And Australia just banned basically assault weapons, pump-action shotguns, which would typically be used for waterfowl hunting. And their crime has actually, in the last year since the ban has happened, has gone up. Is that a coincidence? I don't know.
Well, I don't know, Paul, but those are good points. Appreciate the phone call. Now, my personal belief is that we'd eliminate a lot of homicide if we ended the war on drugs. So much of gun violence and gun demand, illicit gun demand is related to that. So there's that you can throw into the mix. That would go a long way. I've always wondered why, the legalization movement and the anti-gun control movement never linked up. But, for libertarians, I suppose there's some common ground there. But that's maybe getting a little off track here. Let's go next to Bill. Bill, welcome to the program.
Hey, Rob.
Yes, sir.
I'd just like to comment on Wendy talking about Michael Ignatieff supporting the registry. If he really supports it, why doesn't he go into the Liberal